me, you know, you go back and look at this Jack and the Beanstalk and, you know, talk about Jack the Giant Killer, but we thought it was mythology, but there were giants, and you know, there were giants in the land.
It still is. You ain't seen the NBA? You can't tell me Shaq ain't no giant. You can't tell me Manu Bol ain't no giant. You can't tell me that Vlade Divac ain't no giant. Akeem Olajuwon, them giants. That was common in Mississippi culture though. And that's why they tell you right now they got a whole bunch of giants they found out in the Southwest. We've been here. Some of us got giants in our bloodline.
Yeah.
We gotta remember the average size of most humans in the 1800s was approximately 5'3". The median height. To see somebody over 6 feet, he was huge. Let alone 6 feet and 200 pounds. That was a colossus. But now when you go back further into antiquity, you find that they was bigger. But it's just like with your Cadillac. It started off as huge. But as the upgrades came in, they downsized the vehicle. It's the same thing that they're doing with us. Genetically. When the DNA upgrade, we don't have to be 50 foot tall no more. Because we don't have 13 strands of DNA because we don't need them no more. So they refined it down to 2 strands. Where all of the same information is accessible, it's just that it requires more discipline to access it than it did when it was 12 strands.
So when they're doing these upgrades and so forth, it's having anything to do with the fact that when babies are born, they're always taking they're taking blood samples from the foot. Why are they doing that? And why don't they tell you?
They don't have to. Yeah, they don't want you to know because controlling information. That's controlling information. But the sun and the earth gonna change the DNA anyway. The sun and the earth, the solar flares and Schumann resonance is gonna correct all of theirs in the DNA. The only reason we having birth defects is because some people too powerful to come in normal. So you got to give them a restricted body so they don't throw the whole system out of whack. And that was all programmed in the laboratory. So when the powerful ones come in, they automatically activate the defects, especially ones they call muscular dystrophy and cerebral palsy. The babies born hydrocephalia, they were supposed to have a bigger brain than the rest of us. The problem is that the genetic alterations in the laboratory caused it to retain too much fluid, which suppresses the growth of the brain, and then it causes them to have all kind of problems.
Wow. So back to system. So we talked about religion, the system of, I want to talk about war because, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on. I hear differing factions. You know, I know there's a difference between the so-called Jewish people who are being persecuted, the average everyday people, and the ones running stuff. A lot of times the people in these various countries I find may be innocent, but there's always some regime, some power that's over the people that are the monsters. And so, and it's the same for here, I think, with us. I mean, we could be targets of craziness just because of the fact that, you know, the U.S. government is a part of a system of control and maybe Kabbalistic, and, you know, the C word, not the K Kabul. And in the sense that, you know, they are, you know, economic hitmen running all around the world, you know, just enslaving and taking from people's, you know, resources and so forth. So we become targets because we are the people that live here. And how do we separate ourselves when excuse me, shit hits the fan, like the people in, say, Israel that are, you know, they're not all bad, but maybe Netanyahu's not, you know, it's for stuff like that.
Well, the problem is that the unseen hand never wanted to be seen. So the one that's pulling the strings in America, the Vatican, and London, and Israel, and wherever else you want to go, where people being exploited, it's the same person, same people,
Right.
right? But they don't show themselves. They just show you the people they want you to attack when you realize you want your stuff back. Right? Like Netanyahu's the biggest puppet on the planet. Even though I can't stand him and that he better not be within 3 feet of me, I'm gonna turn his spit red out the gate. But he's still being controlled.
Mm.
All of the so-called terrorist groups was created by the United States, England, and Israel, especially since 1948. I don't care if it's the PLO or Yasser Arafat, that was created by the CIA. If it was Hamas, Hamas was created by the Mossad. You know, so if you can go down the list, ISIS was created by the CIA. ISIS was created by the CIA with a different agenda, though. ISIS was supposed to make us hate the word ISIS like we hate the word gang. ISIS is the mother of the sac that owns the sacerdotal seat. So as long as we looking at ISIS as being evil and villainous, then we'll be resistant to the return of the Great Mother. It's like warfare is, according to Sun Tzu, warfare is based on deception. I mean, at the beginning of the war, you already planning to deceive. Carver and Clausewitz say that all war is a political act of violence. It's the same as politics, but it's used bullets to enforce the political will. So when we're looking at what we up against versus who's pulling the strings, you don't got to see them. All you got to do is realize that they've been tricking us, and the method of trickery they're using will break the spell up off of you. Because they're using conjure magic, mass hypnosis. The greatest hypnotic spell they ever put us on was the We From Africa hypnosis. If you get them to say it long enough, you might be able to convince them. They had 200 years to convince us that we ain't from where we from, and we from somewhere else. But that's a leverage narrative, to leverage you to never assert your proper claim as sui juris, to exercise your territorial jurisdiction over the land. They got subject matter jurisdiction because that's their paperwork. They got copyrights on every piece of paper you file in the court, from written notices. They all of that is their intellectual property, and they allow you to use it. As long as you're using their intellectual property, they got control of your intellect.
Wow.
So we use the oral tradition based on ancient Kemetic science of the Husia, authoritative utterance with the exceptional insight. We ain't got to write nothing down. We just tell you what it is. But now everybody is so dependent on the written word that the oral tradition is falling out of favor with the people who've been living by the oral tradition for millions of years. Nice kind game, but it don't work on me.
Wow. So they are, we know that they the same entity, you know, I call it the triangulation, you know, when you talk about the Vatican, London, and the US. And when we talked earlier about the 200-year conjure, are they were they a part of that? And could you kind of go into a little bit more detail about what we talked about today with what?
So
Yeah.
Look, when you do blood magic on a mass scale, you need what's called first blood. This is why they can't never let us forget Crispus Attucks was the first to die in the American Revolution. Right? Because his blood is first blood. The contract had to be written in his blood in order for it to have effect. Because it's written in a book, the blood of the righteous shall not be spilled in vain. Right? So when you go to the George Washington Masonic Memorial Museum, you see a constitution, but it's written in fading letters. The letters look kind of like rust. That's blood. Right? I got a book over there on blood magic to tell you exactly how it worked. Right? And that they was using it in politics. When you sign with red ink, that's symbolic to signing it in blood.
Okay.
Right? Because the blood is the key to the rights. Because you got to have the blood, the right, and the wherewithal to use both of them to your advantage. So to identify Crispus Attucks as the first to fall in the American Revolution, they're telling us who blood they wrote the contract in without telling us that they wrote the blood in his contract, the contract in his blood. Right? Then they tell us he was a mixed blood. No, he wasn't. Because my man's daddy was tribes from over here. Right? But they want us to believe he was from Africa so that they can continue the slave narrative and pushing us off our land by disassociating us from the land. That's why the paper genocide was at play, right? Where they reclassified us on paper. That's their intellectual property. That don't mean we got to believe they BS. That's their intellectual property. They got a right to do what they intellectual. They can remix it if they want to. We just can't fall for their remix. We got to have more passion for the original than the remix. It's just like now some people make a song, they be a remake of somebody else's song. That's a good song, but it ain't good as the original. It's the same principle. They use sharecropping agreements to muscle us off the land. Then they use the same sharecropping agreements to steal our intellectual property in Hollywood, in New York, with music and movies. The 360 deal is a sharecropping agreement.
So
everything
they keep applying it to different,
yeah, because they don't never change their MO. That's why it's so easy to track them. Everything they do, they use the same MO. Good cop, bad cop, Mutt and Jeff routine. First, they gonna send some guy in. He the clergy. He supposed to be all nice, sweet, and holier than thou, but he the most wicked out of all of them. Then they gonna send the a-hole in there with the bad attitude. He the best one of the two. You don't want to talk to him because you don't like his attitude, so you want to talk to the one with the pleasing personality. That's the snake of all snakes, the grand dragon.
Some people might be wondering about what contract you're talking about when you said, the contract was written in Crispus Attucks' blood.
The Constitution, the secondary Constitution. Everybody knows two constitutions. The second one was written in the blood of Crispus Attucks, and it's on file. You can pull it up, George Washington Masonic Memorial Museum, Constitution, and it'll show you the book. It's not written in black ink. That's why it's fading, because the contract only can last for so long. When the blood fades, it loses its strength.
And this was to perform a conjure, which they put us under.
A mass conjure.
A mass conjure. So it's about to expire if calculations are correct. Some say it expired in 2012. But it seems like nobody knows that it's expired. I mean, that coincide with the Mayan calendar and all of that stuff, or was that just coincidental? Because
so it was supposed to. If we would have stuck to the original program, it would have ended in 1976. The
Okay.
problem is they didn't ever stop attacking us when we were supposed to educate ourselves above the condition. So when in the war 1812, we took them back to war. That gave them an extension. It reset the clock 200-year rule, which lasted into 2012. But the problem is it still take what they call dissipation time. The dissipation time is once the spell is broke, for people to come from up under the slumber, it's a grace period of time that it takes. Right? So you still have stuff, markers that they're giving you in the form of legislation or what they call world order coding, like Agenda 2025, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2040, all that. Them agendas is just, if we don't wake up from under the contract, that's what we're going to do next.
They're going to extend it more, do more damage, do more harm.
Yeah. But sad for them, everything they thought they was getting away with, they got trapped. See, where they made their biggest mistake, George Herbert Walker Bush had a Senate Select Committee. We could talk about this in Behold a Pale Horse, where he declared himself King George, the first of the United States of America. That means that when Bill Clinton was in there 2 terms, G. Dummy was in there 2 terms, and Obama was in there 2 terms, he was still the president. They was just sitting in. They was sitting in as his assets.
Well, didn't that happen with Biden? Wasn't Obama pulling the strings behind the scenes?
Biden been gone. That was all central casting in order to give us enough time to wake up enough people in order to break free from the slumber. Wasn't enough of us waking up, so they had to get more time, so they put the Biden administration in between the 2 Trump administrations. This is it for the corporate America's gone. I'm just waiting them to start arresting these crooked ass judges and lawyers, because they the ones who has been doing all of the writing of how to steal our stuff. And they was told to do it by King George in Savannah, Georgia in the 1800s. In the first charter of the bar, he said, take everything from them using the law. So they used the law. Squatter right. They used salvage rights. The salvage rights came from the wreck of the Plymouth when they took us to the World Court and said we crashed our landmass into their ship. But they don't tell the populace. So the ones who figure it out, they got to leave you a code. Malcolm said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us.
That's why.
What are you talking about? The Mayflower is the good ship Plymouth. The first place it docked, there's a rock there called the Plymouth Rock. That's the memorial of where the Plymouth ran ashore. We don't know what none of that stuff means because we don't understand that they talking to each other in Masonic code, especially the Scottish Rite. They was the main ones that was involved in it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that's how we get to figure out all kinfolk, all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
So I want to read something about what you just said. About they didn't land on us, they landed on them. And so it's talking about, it says here, like what that possibly might mean from a metaphorical type, that our land was conscious, not merely territory, but a living spiritual force. It was not discovered. It revealed itself and initiated karmic consequences. That their ship was already doomed, spiritually speaking. Reading this, the arrival of colonizers was not an act of destiny, but of disruption, and the land responded accordingly. Wreck as a metaphor, it wasn't that the land caused a literal shipwreck, but that the presence of something so spiritually misaligned with land, imperialism, conquest, greed, was destined to spiritually wreck the invaders, no matter how grand their plans.
And so we get the authorization to colonize us from the Pope through unum sanctums and papal bulls.
Right.
In the papal bull, he declared all the people of the earth imbeciles, incompetent, and therefore he gonna handle all of our affairs on our behalf, whether we want him to or not. Who gave that sucker that kind of power?
He took it.
Well, he didn't. He's a puppet too. That's the part we not, it's not clicking. But when you see them people who feed he kissing, then it'll start to make sense who put him in power. They look like us. They ain't us. They don't even look like us to me, but to some of us and the people that don't look like us, we all look alike.
Right.
But I could spot them. I could spot their behavior. They got a characteristic behavior pattern. They always starting stuff when we get together to congregate for peaceful purposes. They come in and want to rustle up some BS. They shit starters everywhere they go. They can't help it. It's their nature. Yeah. They can't stand to see two peaceful people having a peaceful conversation, getting along, and they don't interrupt you with some shenanigans.
Well, that's their job. That's their job. Let me see. Washington. Somebody said Washington is empty.
Look, it's a lady on YouTube named Andrew, been filming it for the last 6-7 years. Showing all the buildings. Some of the buildings is just like ghost towns. They got fences around other buildings. Some buildings just not even being used. The United States Treasury moved. It's not even in DC no more, the headquarters. They got a satellite office still there, but the main headquarters is right outside Reno, Nevada now, on a native base, on a native reservation.
So what are the so-called, these senators and Congress people, what are they doing as far as when, they're allegedly not home, they're up in DC? Where are they? What they doing? Because I got somebody here.
They having origins.
Look, I'm going to say, I know somebody here who's our so-called senator, and I wonder, what I've heard that's going on there. When she goes off there, where the heck is she going? Or do they, is there some kind of do they just kind of sit around and go, okay, meanwhile, what we do next? But they're not really doing anything. Now you see these congressional hearings every now and then. They're speaking of congressional hearings. There's one that went on in the last few days or a couple of weeks. I don't know what it is. It's supposed to be Senate, Congress, whatever. But where do they go? Where are they going since everything is?
Since you brought that up, go back to the Senate hearings that they invited Jeff Ford to and look at the building, and then look at the building they having them in. Now, it's not the same building.
Jeff Fort, the one that you've been talking.
Yeah. See, they called him down there because they gave him grant money. And he was the first person that they ever had a congressional hearing to determine what you do with the grant money we gave you. So he came in, he gave his name, he got up and left. But they didn't like that too well, so they decided to railroad him into prison. Right? Go look at the Iran-Contra hearings. That's not the same building. So wherever they at, it's a studio.
Really?
The real House Senate building is a vaulted ceiling. These ceilings is low. Right? And it's set up different. Right? They got a spot for the Speaker of the House. and then they got a seat on each side of the speaker, and then the rest of the Congress sit around them. It's modeled after the Unity Hall in Philadelphia.
Yeah, we were there with with Empress.
Yeah. That was the Capitol until they rolled out contract for the Crispus Attucks situation. They had to move the Capitol because the tribe, one of the elders, put a curse on the building. They thought it like they had hot sauce on their ass.
So when we went, Empress sat in that high seat, and they like to had a triple conniption.
That was taking back the power. That was Big Mama sitting on Big Mama's seat, and they didn't like it, but it wasn't nothing they could do about it because they already know who we are. Right. So if you remember when you was there, it was a lady in the other room. She was recalling the curse that was put on the place, and she was telling you don't be nothing in the history books. They're all lies. Right. She was the closest blood relative to the one who put the original curse on the building. So when Empress sit in the seat, she had to unlock the curse in order to take back the power. And that wasn't planned. She said she didn't even know she was going to do that when she was going. She was just following what she felt.
Yeah. She ruffled their feathers. She ruffled their feathers. Yes. Let me see what they're saying down here. I just okay. Very strange things happen in Philadelphia. Oh, wow. That bullying for a situation bringing the Eagle tubes. I'm just trying to see if there's anything, if anybody was asking any particular questions. Oh damn, that got the response was funny.
The courts have nothing to do with us, by the way.
Say what?
Somebody asked a question about the courts. The courts have nothing to do with us. And the way that you know the courts don't have nothing to do with us is it's a matter between barristers. The judge a barrister, the prosecutor a barrister, the attorney's a barrister. They all barristers. You're the only one not a barrister. So what do you have to do with barristers' business? They tricking us.
But jurisdictionally, if we haven't done certain things to declare our status or correct our status, then we are in.
They don't even acknowledge us correcting our status in their system.
And no, they don't.
They will only acknowledge certain people because they come from a certain bloodline. They know who we all are. So certain people will get relief, but the majority won't. Where's the rise of the Moors? Is they still locked up? They was right. Exercising what they call a constitutional right to form a well-armed militia. Also, the right to bear arms. Constitutionally, they was correct. But they still charging them with criminal behavior for following the Constitution. So either the Constitution means something or it don't, or it only means something for certain people. They don't have nothing to do with us. They courts have nothing to do with us. They got us in there. You know, all we is to them is the thumb drive full of data. We just another file that they're using to shuffle around across the tables. Where they come from?
Who? They who?
The courts. Where they come from? We got tribal courts still operating on the land that's autonomous of their systems. But they ignore our tribal courts in order for them to push their artificial constitutional color of law de facto system on us.
Because those are
they are a foreign body politic.
That's how they extract fiat, the finance, and so forth from us, you know, with these contracts and these bonds and these, all of these various things that they get to, you know, go into, you know, our trust and take our, you know, plus take whatever else they want from, you know, family. It impacts family, or so-called family, kinfolk, because when they, you know, when you got to pay for phone calls and commissary and this, that, and the third, and putting people, you know, paying bail and bond and all these things, you know, it doesn't just affect the one that they have kidnapped. It's you know, it affects.
We haven't even noticed it, that they make us pay to be their slave. Just think about that. If you go to the county jail, most of these sheriffs, they feed you up down, right? But you haven't been convicted. But under their system, they swear that you innocent until you proven guilty, but they treat you like you guilty.
True.
Because in their system, you automatically guilty regardless of what they say out their mouth. They all are acting under the color of law. Colorable law. Using color as the code. They de facto. They don't belong here. But as long as we go along to get along and we don't say nothing, they'll stay as long as they want to. When we get fed up and recognize what's taking place, the police is a foreign military that's occupying the territory. The police charters trace straight back to London. Then they separate the names, like the word police is owned by the Fraternal Order of Police. Right? But in Europe, they call them something else. But they the same thing, sister lodge. Over here, I'm talking about the organization that owned the title police over there. Okay, now, over here, the pirates is called Skull and Bones, but over there, they called the Scroll and Key. Same thing, pirates. All they doing is coming to suck our blood. Vampires.
Vampire.
And we wore wolves. That's that movie, Underworld. You ever see that?
Underworld.
So that this lady that was a vampire, and she was fighting to. Then eventually they came out with a hybrid vampire werewolf that was supposed to lead both sides. It's all about that drop of blood. It's called it's called Underworld. It's like three part movie.
Now look, I don't know. I'm not aware of that, but somebody said it was awesome. Underworld. I've got to look. I got one of those streaming things to look for it.
Look, if you go back to Twilight, the tribes turned into wolves.
Okay.
But the colonizers, they was vampires. They glistened in the sun.
Are we talking about the real ones?
We're talking about the movie Twilight.
Okay.
So now, the question is, why are they glistening in the sun? But they pale face. Because they are expressing something called prismatic melanin. Right? So the prismatic melanin reflect in the sun, but pale skin don't.
Okay. So why?
But they was telling you, they was just using that as a like a representation of who the people was that came over here versus who they was fighting.
Okay.
They call the werewolves lichens. They say they look like kin, but they not.
Yeah, somebody put the lichens in the chat. Yeah.
Yep. They look like kin, but they not.
And what was the other guy's name that played the vampire? Wesley Snipes. Didn't he
No, Blade.
Blade. Wasn't he a vampire or something?
Yeah, he was what you call a day walker, a vampire that could tolerate the sun.
Okay. Because they had the protection of the melanin. But you know what blew my mind today when we were talking, and I didn't realize it. Maybe other people realized, I didn't. So it's like I was today years old when I found out, that this brother had been in prison. Larry Hoover had been in prison for 52 years.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lifetime for some folks, for some people. But
You got people that died natural causes before they even turned 50.
right, so he has been in the belly of the beast or whatever for 52 years, and then you told me he's in an admin max, which grossly restricts
Oh,
his ability.
Colorado for like 20-something years.
Wow. So no family,
Look,
no.
only like a handful of family members can visit him, and they got to be the same people on the list. And it's up to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, if he can change the visitors on this. He got grandkids he ain't never seen in person. He talked to them on the phone briefly, but he have never seen them in person. Let that man go.
Mm.
You just turned his life upside down on your war strategy. It's like most of us don't know that these people that we talk about, Jeff Ford, Larry Hoover, Tookie, Geronimo Pratt, Fred Hampton, H. Rap Brown, they all was targets of COINTELPRO. Stokely Carmichael. And I can just go down that George Jackson. I can go down that list for hours. And they had 400 names on the COINTELPRO list in just Chicago alone. So imagine how many they had in New York, Louisiana, Miami, Baltimore, LA, San Francisco, Oklahoma City, all over the country. They was looking for one of us that would be able to galvanize the people to stand up against the artificial system. They didn't never want us to come from under this condition. And they thought that they had us. They thought that we was gonna never figure it out.
Wow.
Martin Luther King had to do a nonviolent protest because he didn't want them son bitches getting another extension.
So yep, they said, they targeted, like I said, they didn't want to. Hoover said no messiahs, right? Less than the Messiah rise up in their community. So what do they have in common? Their leadership ability, the ability to, charismatic leadership. They were able to have influence over, the communities that they not they, but the so-called government had disenfranchised, and they did have the potential to organize, significant militant, or as they say, political resistance, and they were all against that. But they really wanted to uplift and awaken the people. That's what we want to do, and that's what they wanted to do, and that's why they were,
Well, if you understand COINTELPRO, it'll explain to you why all of those guys was locked up. They didn't even count the ones that is killed with the heart attack gun, like Dale Jones. We think he just died of natural causes. He ain't died no damn natural causes. It's a lot of them that we think died of natural causes that didn't. And then when they really get mad, they send one of their minions to shoot your mama in the face because you was too effective. In church, on the front pew.
Are we talking about Martin Luther King's mother?
Yeah. We forget that he was one of them people that look like us that ain't us. Call themselves a Hebrew Israelite or a Jew.
We talking about Martin now, right?
Yeah, Martin Mama.
Actually Michael King.
Well, if he changed his name, I'm gonna go with the changed name because that's what he want to be referred to as. But the point being is, they hated him so bad that they killed his mama. They had to come out of hiding to do that.
Yeah.
so you can see they look like us, but they ain't us. Everybody keep thinking pale faces went up in Emmett Till people's house and got him. There wasn't no pale faces went in there and got him.
Gave him. They look like us. They took him out there.
They didn't even show it in the movie. But in the movie, they mix them up where there's some pale faces and dark skins in there. Mm-hmm. But when the original story came out, they said that the brothers came and got him so that the Klan wouldn't burn their town down. That's BS. He was going to be Chief Littlehorn, and he was going to call us to war, and that's what the problem was. He wasn't whistling at that woman. He was whistling Dixie, as they call it. Old war cry from the minstrels. They killed his daddy too, but we don't know nothing about that part.
Really? Look, afterwards?
Before.
Oh.
That's how he even ended up down there. His daddy was already gone. They killed him in the military. He was going to be Chief Bighorn. But we don't know our culture, so we don't know who these people are. And then if I call them by their tribal, the name that they would eventually adopt as a tribal chief, we won't recognize the name because they never got to the point of self-realization to name themselves. What did Bob Marley say every time he planted a seed? Sheriff John Brown say, kill it before it grow. Ain't gonna let you, if they can stop you, they're gonna stop you before you can be effective. Dude, we've been at war for 500 years. It's just that now we've been so conditioned to the conditions of the warfare that we forgot what it was like to be truly free, living on the fat of the land.
Wow. Well, I mean, their systems are designed to, just totally, like you said, to take away the power of unity from us. When like they say, I mean, it's very, very, basic, but where there's unity, there's definitely strength. And if you can have people, pulled in different directions, and it's not all from the same reason, for the same reason. I mean, there's so many distractions out there, and so many different agendas that people are following that we can't come together as a cohesive force. And they're still doing what they want to do in terms of that. And as long as we got the church versus the saved so-called versus the so-called unsaved, and the higher ups, or the so-called black middle class, and then but everybody's I think that stuff is kind of coming all down to the same thing. Everybody's complaining about the cost of this, that, and the third, because now they don't care. Everybody's being thrown to the wolves. But I'm saying there's so many things. And how, Chief, do we begin to bring the focus to a unified point? Like we're all looking at the same thing. What can we agree on? What should we be agreeing on?
The only thing we need, I don't know if we need to all agree, because everybody not going to always agree on everything. But what we need to understand is that the corporation that's masquerading as our government is a fraud. That one thing alone, it gives us support from every community across the land, from pale faces to Hispanics to the original people of the land to the African immigrants. Right? Once we understand that it's a constructed fraud, then we're in a position to begin to see the problem. Mm-hmm. Right? If they don't keep us divided, that's the number one tool. Matter of fact, on your AI, ask them, how much do the FBI spend on confidential informants every year?
I heard they spend millions. I don't know. Yeah.
You think about how many people that is, and there's averaging $100,000, close to $100,000 per informant. That's a pretty lucrative job.
Let me see if I can find out. You mean like individual or just overall per cap? Yeah.
Annually, how much did the FBI spend on confidential informants?
I don't know. Oh, wow. Wow. So I don't know what they're spending now, but it looks like, oh wow. So back in 2012 to 2018, they spent an average of 42 million a year on confidential human sources. That's what they're called now, CHS.
That's just the FBI.
Yeah. Now this year it says for 2025 they requested 11.3 billion in direct budget authority. So I don't know how much of that would be going to, paying that, but paying confidential.
Look, we all seen him, but we didn't know we was looking at. The guy that hang out with all the drug dealers don't sell no dope, but he balling just like them. He know them all. He'll never get arrested. He'll never sell no dope, but he hang out with all the drug dealers and keep a wad of money in his pocket. They call it petty cash.
Yeah.
Why do they need to spend that much on informants if they investigators? They supposed to investigate, right, and find the answer. They don't know nothing unless somebody tell them. They know where all the dope go because they bring it here. They know who they gave it to. The same original investigator from the Biggie murder, Russell Poole, was the same one whistleblower that told when Ricky Ross got arrested that Ricky Ross was getting drugs from the government. He wasn't never supposed to go to jail because the government created the crime and punished him for it. Anybody with a dope case, they co-defendant is the government. Especially when it was cocaine in the 80s and 90s, because they was the ones bringing it in.
And yeah, because like we don't have no planes, no ships, then you had during the war, you had, my understanding is that there were a lot of bodies coming into Dover Air Force Base that had packages with them.
That was during Vietnam when they was bringing heroin in.
Yeah.
I mean, they switched from heroin to cocaine because the old man Bush had oil tanker that wasn't subject to search. But William Cooper go over that information in Behold the Pale Horse too.
I'm had to.
He used the same cover story of an oil tycoon to oversee the assassination of JFK.
The cover story?
Yeah, because in the CIA it's called a cutout. That's how he got to the top of the CIA, got to be the director. Right. Thanks to LBJ.
And LBJ went from vice president to president after he was,
right. Yeah. Because that's the only way he was going to get the office, Kennedy. And so he called one of his assets in, which was the grandson or son of Prescott Bush, who come from a banking family. All that stuff is, they already didn't track them. All of the illicit wealth for the last 50 years has been being tracked. Wall Street got caught, like everybody think Wall Street trading, it's all phantom trading right now. They just moving numbers. Because they already been caught laundering over $1 trillion in human trafficking money, illegal money, and illegal drug money. $1 trillion in each. That's a whole lot of money. And they know who got the money, where it went, and how they got it. You thinking they working in hundreds of billions of dollars? Those are electronic transfers.
Yeah.
That ain't no cash.
Well, what about the ships that were going out before 9/11, allegedly in the dead of night, from the harbor there?
I'm not familiar with the ships. I do know that they had vans that was collecting the gold that was on reserve in the World Trade Center.
Well, yeah,
Right
I heard
leading up to the.
yeah. So you heard it was vans. I heard there were ships that were leaving, um, that were taking things out prior to.
Yeah, they were supposed to be dumping, trying to get rid of some of the evidence by dumping gold in the oceans. Well, I don't know if they did that or not, but that was one of the reports that I came across.
I'm wondering what would be the point if you dump it. If you know where you dumped it, you go back and get it later on when all the stuff is blows over, right?
Yeah,
And then you knock down the building a couple of blocks away and make sure that was probably holding records of stuff that you took out.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a.
John Jr. was telling us everything in George magazine. We didn't know what he was talking about because he was talking in code.
Who was now?
John Jr.
Oh, he talked about it in George.
He got the whole magazine is coded from cover to cover.
Mm.
He named it George because he was after George Bush.
George Bush. That's why. Oh my goodness.
The CIA the ones told him that who killed his daddy. They figured because he was a clean cut pale face that he wasn't going. They keep forgetting they Irish, and Irish is just light skinned Negroes.
Well, now there's a man that and of course Dr. Key has had him on her show. I think she has, at least she's talked to him, that says that he is the real JFK, and talks a lot about a lot of different things, including Mr. Trump not being the
I know what you're talking about, but I never listened to him. I don't know. He said that he was switched with the son Aristotle Onassis when Jackie took up with him.
That's not what he says in the book. He says that one of Aristotle Onassis' son was actually murdered in his presence, but he I don't know where the boy allegedly came from that he claims, but that wasn't the real John. But he said the reason why they called him John because he was the original one. But he said he was related to Trump. And he also says that Trump was killed in a helicopter crash, with two executives on New Jersey Turnpike. And that he actually was taken by his handler to saw his body, because apparently Trump was a helicopter pilot also. I don't know if Trump still knows how to fly.
Well, I know they got more than one Trump.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking those more than one has to do more with protection, but we're talking about way back whenever that crash was, that he was on that. He was piloting the plane that he had perhaps had upset some people, like in the mob or something, and they kind of put something on the plane the helicopter that took it down.
If they got 3 Trumps right now, that means they used to have 4.
Okay. I get it.
And it ain't no guarantee that the one that he seen dead was the real Trump.
That's true. But he does talk about it in the book. Yeah.
I never read the book, so I don't know.
He even mentioned a little boy that was there at the same time he was. He said one day I'm going to be star. He said the boy was Denzel Washington, and he has a picture in there of them at this event. And so I was like, oh, but it almost seems like if that was true, it would almost put Denzel more into one of those MK Ultra type situations, having been groomed. But I don't know. But he says it in the book.
I'm not familiar enough with his background and story to really to comment on it. I know who you're talking about. I know some of his story, but like I never read his book. I never talked to him. I don't know none of the details, but I have came across him on Dr. Kia's show a couple times, but I didn't listen to the whole, broadcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, so yes. Let me make sure I want to put this up. Listen, yeah, for those of you who love to support Chief. I know we've been usually put his Cash App up, but just like us, his Cash App has been sabotaged. Something about we don't know what's up with Cash App, but seems like when we do what we do, we get targeted by them and they shut us down. So Chief has PayPal. I want you to take note of this, please. Is at SikApe01 and his PayPal. We need to show our love to this man who studies and takes in all this information and takes all these hours to sit. I mean, he did a interview the other day. I think it was 4 hours. I was like, okay, he just like, so I want to make sure that I put that up so that we can literally show him how much we care. But yeah, they took our Cash App too, like almost a year ago. And I tell you, if you're waiting for them to respond by email, stop waiting, because they don't.
I'm waiting in the same way I'm waiting for anything else. If it happened, it happened.
They won't.
I don't believe nothing that anybody in this system tell me till they show me.
All right. Well, they showed us a year later. I'm still waiting for an explanation as to why they shut our Cash App down. So what did I do that was illegal? Not unless it has something to do with what we say on the show. I definitely did nothing illegal with them. So but we do want to make sure.
Yeah, they've been blocking me almost 2 weeks. Cash App.
And that, yeah,
The only reason.
Yeah, somebody sent 100 notes to me after House of Real Recognize. I could think the other day. I can't even remember the sister's name, but the sister, you know who you are. It's going to come back to you because we don't have cash. And they just hold it and then they send it back to you. I hope they send it back because it doesn't come to us. We don't get anything. So when it comes to that, we do have PayPal and Zelle, but yeah, just make sure that you don't use Chief's Cash App anymore. And I think I have the Cash App in the description, so don't pay attention to the Cash App in the description. We're now PayPal. Yeah. So, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to hold you and make you do like 4 hours. I don't. Oh, you know what? I don't have a flyer for it, y'all, but on Friday, because I've been waiting for Grand Sheik to give me the title for Friday. But we will be on Friday, Grand Sheik and I, and this Friday coming up at 7:30 Eastern. So, and I'm looking forward to when we introduce that new song, Chief.
Oh, yeah.
Glad you like it. I think they'll like it. I think they'll like it. I like it. I got it on heavy rotation in my little playlist and so forth. They'll be singing it, I think. The ones that can. But yeah, we're gonna
Fire. I was like,
huh?
I couldn't even believe who you told me was singing.
Yeah. And yeah. We're not gonna tell them, but it's catchy, isn't it?
As they used to say back in the 50s and 60s, it's groovy, baby, groovy.
It is absolutely. Shout out to brother Rod's Bristol Bay. He's the bomb, as they say, he's the bomb.com when it comes to that. So when folks hear they hear the new song, they're gonna like, oh wow, yeah, you can. But I'm waiting because we're to do a video intro with it, so it'll be our new intro. But Sister Cynthia said, make it short. I don't want to make it short. We'll play the whole thing. I just like the whole thing, But it's good. It's good. I'm excited. And I know they love to hear my spiritual daughter sing. But she did that song 10 years ago. It was 2015. She sang it on the phone. And we just put it up just like it was off the like the phone recording. But this is a major upgrade as far as just having I'm not going to retire her song altogether, but I think they'll like the new one. You liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but yeah, so Grand Chic is going to be on. I just don't have a thing to put up to tell you because he didn't tell me what he wanted us to talk about, but he told me he would tell me. So sometime between now and Friday I will know, but we'll be on to talk about something, and he might even be here. So he's talking about maybe coming to Delaware. So he might even be sitting beside me like old times. He said he misses me. Chief, before we go, is there anything else you want to tell us? Because I've been kind of running things and directing things, but tell us something that you didn't get to say that you want to say. Take out however long you want.
I don't have a lot left. Just pay attention to the solar flares and the Schumann resonance because that's where the genetic upgrades is coming from. And you be feeling funny, go check it because it might be related to you being upgraded.
I've been feeling funny lately. So what's that mean?
Look up the Schumann resonance and the solar flares. They going at it. They having a whole conversation.
So we shouldn't be avoiding them, right or no?
No, look, the universe speaking frequency. They don't use English. Mm-hmm. And the frequency is measurable by man-made instruments. So you can actually see what the sun is doing and what the earth is doing in response. They're having a whole two-way dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel a little different, you know what I mean? And I've been trying to figure out why I feel different, you know what I mean? Why I'm feeling certain feelings of, and it may be, maybe that's something to do with that. I don't know.
Well, I know the women gonna get the most upgrades faster than anybody else because they control mitochondria, and that's where the genetic upgrades is coming through the frequency that comes through the mitochondria.
So the solar flares, are we seeing them or just feeling them? I mean, are we literally going to see things flat in the sky, or is it just energy that is
the Aurora Borealis or the Northern Lights and the Southern Lights going to be able to be seen in places where they're not normally seen because of the frequencies coming in. It's giving like a ripple effect, a rolling aura response. So you be able, they've been reporting it and filming it too. Some people have been on social media filming